Hi, everyone. Dr. Elizabeth Bonet here. Dr. Liz, welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast. Before we jump in, please note that the podcast is not mental health treatment, nor should it replace mental health treatment. If you need psychotherapy or hypnotherapy, please seek treatment from a trained professional. I do hypnosis all over the world, so please feel free to contact me through my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. Hi, everyone. Dr. Liz here. We are talking about weight loss during the pandemic. During this episode, as well as next week. Next week is more practical tips and will be episode 176. But today we're talking with Erika Flint. She is the president and owner of Cascade Hypnosis Center, an award-winning board certified hypnotist, an accredited certified professional hypnotherapy instructor. So she runs her own training institute, both online and in person in Washington State in the U.S. And she's also the author of the best-selling books Reprogram Your Weight and Lighter, which are both about hypnosis for weight loss. We talk about all kinds of things in this episode, though. And before we jump right into it, if you'd like a good resource, then I sell a mindful eating hypnosis on my website. It's an immediate download, and you might want to check it out. The podcast listeners get 20% off of that if you just put in the code podcast, and it's on my website under downloads. All right, I hope you enjoy today's conversation with Erika. Hi, Erika. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast.
Hi, it's great to be here, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with a question I ask a lot of hypnotherapists, which is, what was your first experience with hypnosis?
That's a very good question. Now, I think my professional belief is we're hypnotizing ourselves all the time. We're always going in and out of trance. But I'll answer the question like the first time that I knew I was in hypnosis, or the first time I really understood what hypnosis really was, I was sitting in my first hypnosis class. And we had just done a hypnosis exercise, and my background is in software engineering. So I was in software for 15 years, programming computers, looking for, modules and pattern matching and all of this stuff. And so after that experience in my hypnosis training class, I realized what hypnosis was really doing. And in
Which
that
is what?
moment, yeah, I know. Isn't that such a great question? So what is it actually
Which
doing?
Is what,
right? Okay, so here's what it's actually doing. It's giving you direct access to program your mind however you want to program. So it gives you access to program your inner operating system. Whereas in the past, I was helping to program computers, and some very powerful computers. I worked for one of the largest computing organizations in the world. We had over 400,000 employees. We were doing leading edge research on cognitive computing at the time. I mean, this is like really cutting edge stuff, but none of it compares to the human mind.
Yes.
And so now, I get to help clients. And I think this point is really important. I'm not reprogramming their mind at all. I'm giving my clients tools so that they can reprogram how they think and feel in any situation, so that they can behave in ways, they can behave in ways they want to behave.
Yes. So why were you sitting in a training class? Like, you're working as a computer programmer, and then you decided to, can you hear that or not? You can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, people. You guys, we are continuing, you guys. We're serious.
The lawn people have decided to hit my house right now. They will move on.
We are still, broadcasting through a pandemic. These are the things that we have to roll with. So
totally. Okay. So you were a computer programmer, and you're sitting in a class to become a hypnotist.
Yeah, it doesn't really sound like those two things would lead there. So I'll tell you the full story. So I went through, and a lot of people have had this experience where, you're like the A student, or you're like the person who, I was the firstborn in my family and very, competent, and I was able to do all of the things. And so I followed kind of the rules for Western society, and the rules for Western society say, you get good grades in high school, then you go to a good college, and then you get a good job and you get married and you have your house with the picket fence and the 2 cars and the kids and the dog and all of that stuff. So that's the model that I was following. And at some point, the middle of my software career, I was like, the happiness is supposed to be around here. I did all of the things that I was supposed to do. And instead, what I found was I was very empty inside. And what had happened was I was off my spiritual path. And so the way that I talk about spirituality for myself in my own life and in my practices, it's a personal thing. But we all need to have something. Well, I'm not talking about God here. I'm talking more about something in your life that's bigger than you, something that makes you something to fight for, something to live for, something that makes you want to be alive. We all need that in our life. And I was chasing after a manufactured ideal that I think a lot of us do. And one day I woke up miserable. I ended up starting to drink too much. And so that's a really big part of my story. I basically saved my life with hypnosis, is what happened. And so through the power of me saving my own life with hypnosis, I realized that this tool can work when everything else has failed. And I just had to immediately, leave my other job and start doing this full time. So those were a lot of things kind of happening at once.
Yeah. Did it help you stop drinking? Like you're saying, you're drinking too much. It did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it did and I had tried all sorts of other things, but nothing else seemed to work. So that's where the hypnosis, and where hypnosis is so effective is that it gets at the very deepest layer of who we are, which I think is where the truth is anyway. So why are we able to accept hypnotic suggestion? Like, why is that important? Well, it's because at deeper levels of our own understanding, we know that is the truth of who we are. So we're easily able to accept positive suggestions about ourselves in a state of hypnosis because it's the absolute truth. We don't have layers of BS that we have been spoon-fed or otherwise unwittingly put on some glasses that we don't want to be wearing anymore, but we didn't even realize that we put them on.
It's very true. I think that is very true. Like the truth of us is positive and good. And, everything that, let's say we want to transform into, like when a client comes in and says, I want to be this, or I want to do this. It's like, they know. I think that's a beautiful way to put it, the truth of who they are, and they're having trouble accessing it, but it's there. It's like, yes,
because they have limiting beliefs and they have layers of BS that are piled on top of it. And that's kind of the insidious nature of a limiting belief. Once we realize it's a limiting belief, well, it doesn't have to be limiting anymore, but usually we're unaware of it. We're totally unaware. It's just like the same thing. We're unaware of our own biases. So we have to step outside of ourselves in order to get that perspective, which is what hypnosis allows us to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes we can make an argument that the whole therapy session is a trance, right? It's a type of trance. I really believe it is. But just that reflection from somebody else, hearing your language that you're using even is a shift in itself. Like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Let's catch that right here, right? I can't.
And they won't even notice that they're talking about it or thinking about it in a way.
Yes.
Unless you have someone who's trained to listen.
Yes.
And listen for specific words and how emphasis is placed on specific words. So it's usually, like our clients are communicating to us consciously, and that part is usually thoughtful. I'm not listening for that part. I'm not listening for what my client thinks they want to tell me. I am listening for all of the other things that aren't said. The hesitation on certain pathways of language, I'll have them clarify. The stumbling over words. They start to say one thing and then they say the other. What they were originally going to say was the important element of it.
Yes.
So I think, listening for kind of like this non-verbal but vocal language and language from the unconscious is super, super important.
Yes, absolutely. I've been known to tell my children I'm a very highly trained and paid listener. That's what I am, right? Like that's really what I am. And it reminds me of, I know we talked about getting into this topic. I think this is a good segue. It reminds me of when I was working with someone and she's struggling with food. And I said, well, let's talk about what comes up. And she said, well, ultimately what comes up to her is, oh, it doesn't matter, so I'll eat it anyway. And so I said, okay, let's pause here for a moment. You mean you don't matter, so I'll eat it anyway? And she is like, oh my gosh. It's like, yeah, that's what it was.
Whoa,
right?
That's intense.
Yeah, like let's get to, do you matter? And really instilling that belief and working on it, because you do matter, right? You are important, all of that. So
I'll share one with you that was pretty good.
Absolutely.
So I'm working with a woman, and she's been married to a man for 30 plus years, and he puts on such a great show. Everybody thinks he's fantastic, but behind the scenes, when the doors are closed, of course, he's a total nightmare. And so she's like, there's something missing. And she's looking for closure, right? So she's looking for closure with this relationship. And so I just flipped it right back around with her. I said, you are absolutely right. There is something missing. That's the whole problem. Your husband was missing from the relationship, your entire marriage. What you're looking for does not exist. And so she was so hung up on this, like there's a missing piece
There's
of my marriage.
Missing. Yeah.
And it's like, yes, that's the whole point. Right. That's why you need to leave the marriage.
Yeah.
And that really sunk in for her. She's like, oh my gosh, the fact that there's something missing, it doesn't mean that I need to like look at my husband again or do more research. What that really is the evidence that I need to say, yes,
absolutely.
That's the reason why I'm leaving the marriage.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love it. I love it. So I know you've written a book, 2 books about weight loss. So one written more for hypnotherapists, one written more for people just wanting to lose weight. Let's talk about weight and eating right now, because this will air during the pandemic and people are off the rails about
They
eating.
really are. Yeah, myself included. I mean, part of the reason that I'm so good at helping people lose weight is because I have my own experience with weight loss, and I used my successful stories were with Weight Watchers mostly, because I think they do a pretty good job of you forcing you to be mindful, but over time you get tired of counting and pointing. And one of the principles that I think as a hypnotist is so important when it comes to weight loss is whatever you think about grows. And so one of the biggest shifts that I have my clients make is I don't want them journaling their food. A lot of people have they get really fearful about this. They're like, well, geez, how am I going to lose weight if I don't know how much I'm eating? Or if I don't kind of like verify to my mind that I'm eating less, which would be a calorie restrictive diet, so to speak. But the problem becomes when people start writing down what they're eating, they are naturally then, because this is based on deprivation, of course. So they're eating less than what they think they need to eat. It's not intuitive eating, which is what Reprogram Your Weight is all about, is about intuitive eating.
Okay.
And so when you are writing down your food, and I have years of practice doing this, how many points for breakfast, how many points for lunch, so I have this much of a have you done this before? Right?
Oh, yeah, I dropped out of Weight Watchers, but I actually used Hypnosis to lose 50 pounds.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. And I went low carb, high fat, and I did have to track for a while because I wasn't eating enough to lose weight, which is really counterintuitive to a lot of people. But absolutely, I don't think you could be a 50-year-old woman in America without some experience tracking every bite you ate at some point. Right.
Like, and so what tends to happen, what people don't realize is whatever we focus on grows. And so if you're tracking every bit of food, you're thinking about food more. And so it's likely to initiate your appetite. And so the problem then becomes you're either eating or you're thinking about eating. It's one of those two modes. Yeah. I'm either thinking about eating or I'm actually eating. And it starts to drive people crazy because they find that their entire day consists of, and you might have been around people like this before. I know I have. It really stands out to me, especially when people are visiting. It's like they go from one eating event to the next.
Yes.
It's like, okay, what's for breakfast? And then, we're going to go do this thing and we'll stop and get coffee along the way. And then where are we having lunch? So every bit of their life is organized around, the next eating.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a problem. And really right now, what I see happening is people are just, because they're home, they're bored. So there's massive levels of uncertainty.
Yes.
Which our left brain does not like at all. So all of this uncertainty right? When we eat foods, and I'm not talking about any food, right? We have to have the food that releases dopamine and tastes good.
Mhm.
And that takes our mind off the stress for a
For a
moment.
couple of hours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not forever, or maybe even like
Right.
2 minutes sometimes.
Right. And
Yeah,
so
that's
this
what I'm
is where
hearing.
I think one of the skills that is going to be in such high demand. It is now, I believe, but I think we're going to start seeing this being taught in schools, is the ability to calm down your nervous system. So just the
Mhm.
ability to stay calm under pressure, and the ability to stay calm. So people don't understand is when you start to feel a little bit of stress and your heart starts to race, blood rushes from your brain, your head brain.
Mhm. Yeah.
When blood rushes from your head brain, the intention is to get you to run away, not think. And so we actually lose access to our most critical thinking faculties when we get nervous. And so one of the best skills we can ever learn as a human being is the ability to remain calm and
Yes.
choose for ourselves, right? Our nervous system is going to want to flip us into a sympathetic response and prepare us to run because it wants
Yes.
to protect us. We need to be able to override that. So I call that real-time evolution. So in real time, your
Mhm.
brain starts to flip over to sympathetic response. Hey, we're going to have a freak out.
You right?
And you would be able to like grab onto that lever and say, thanks, but no thanks. Like, thanks for thinking of me, but not right now. We're
Yeah,
going to,
very consciously and intentionally saying, okay, I've got to
yeah.
do all kinds of things right now to actually soothe my nervous system, to keep myself calm,
And it
basically.
takes work.
It
Yeah.
does take work. Yeah.
And
I
so
know
the
it has for
way,
me
yeah.
during this whole thing.
Mhm.
There was a couple of weeks in there where I wasn't going to like the anxiety part. I was going more towards the depression. And I was like, oh, no, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing this. Like I know what to do. I know how to go into action, but it is work. It's like, all right, I've got to do
So
these
you know
certain
the flip
things.
side of it. See, that's really good. We
Oh,
need both,
yeah.
right? We need the ability to calm down
Mm-hmm.
and stay calm and focused. And then we
Yeah.
also need the ability to be inspired, because the depression side of things can be equally as bad if you can't
Oh,
muster
yeah.
up the energy or the inspiration to do anything, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So when you relate it to eating,
Mm-hmm.
what do you recommend in terms of like that flip is being switched? Someone's brain is in like, crisis, right?
Yeah.
They're actually trying to run away, but they can't because they're all stuck in their homes.
Yeah.
So they're
So,
reaching for food,
yeah.
right? So what do you recommend for them in terms of that?
Yeah, so I mean, this really is forcing people to step up, really. And I know we have a pandemic and we have social unrest. We have all of these really big things happening right now. And I just want to encourage everybody and tell you that you're all capable of handling all of this. It seems like a lot, but when I was a kid and would read the superhero comics and, this thing getting blown up and that thing being destroyed, I mean, in my mind, I was like, that's what I'm going to do when I get older. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
help the world from these disasters, right?
Yeah,
And we have a lot of disasters right now. And I
we
think for
do.
everybody in the healing community, this is your final exam. So we're all being tested.
Yeah.
And how are you doing? Right?
Yeah,
How
right.
are you passing your test? I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
And my key, so here's my personal key. I
Mm-hmm.
have to get up at a consistent time. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to get up by 5:30 in the morning and I have to work out almost first thing. If I do those two things, that's the code for me. That's like a key for me. If I do those
Mm-hmm.
two things, almost everything else will fall into place. Now, there's going to be different for every person, right? But I think we need
Yes.
to have some routine and consistency, some boundaries that kind of keep
Mm-hmm.
us in play, in kind of a safe place. But the reality is, I think each person, each human being, we have to learn how. It's kind of like when you're a little kid, and your mom's like, "Go play by yourself." Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to learn how to entertain yourself. As adults, we all need to learn to be able to be at home by ourselves
Yes.
without going crazy, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yes.
how do we do that, right? And I think, as far as food goes, for most people who want to lose weight, there's a couple of things that are happening. They don't feel good in their body. They feel frumpy. They feel heavy. They like that
Mm-hmm.
sensation of heaviness is there, and there's a sensation of stuckness.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of like this. inertia, like this lack of movement that kind of comes with that. And that's a terrible feeling.
It
And the good
is.
news is that in as little of as 3 days, it's pretty remarkable how we can shift the sensation in our body. So in as little as 3 days, even just moderate walking, people will feel significantly better. So you can feel like you have a new body in
Mm-hmm.
3 days, right? Just from,
Yeah.
I would say, maybe even 10 minutes of walking every single day. So we have
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, get rid of that inertia type of a feeling, and come up with a really good routine, right? So you got to
Mm-hmm.
stay moving and come up with a really good routine, and just know that I would say this is a challenge and to figure it out.
Yes. I would say consider seeing an online therapist too. Like,
Mhm. Yep.
if you can't go in person, if you can't find someone, by the time this airs, things are opening up more. So there are some in person, but online therapy is incredibly effective.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We've been seeing clients from all over the world
Yes,
for years. So we've been doing this for a long
absolutely.
time, and it's really
Yeah, I think
effective. Yeah.
hypnotherapists are a little ahead of the game because of we do have that
Mhm.
tradition in our profession that it's like,
Yep.
yep, we can work with someone online easily, and we have for a long time. But yeah, get
Mhm.
some help because I think there's all kinds of hypnotic techniques that you can use to so that the walk happens, so that the routine happens,
Yep.
so that we discover, okay, what
Yep.
is the key for you? Right? Maybe it's getting up and exercising. Maybe it's getting up and coloring. I don't know. Maybe it's
Right.
cooking breakfast. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's skipping breakfast. I don't know. But it's like, all right, let's figure those
Mhm.
out. Yeah. And then really work on
Right.
what I always say is deep self worth, knowing that you're worth it and healing any wounds that are stopping you from believing that.
Yeah. The work that I love for that is because I think that's the most important work we can do. And I do work with a lot of clients who, relationships are one of the hardest things that we do as human beings is relating to
Yes.
other human beings. And,
I will keep that in mind when I'm dealing
self
with my 14-year-old right now. Right now.
yeah,
Like,
I
yeah.
know. Yes, good luck. We'll all send you some happy energy when it comes to
Yes.
that, right? Um, yeah, it can be so difficult because they're in such an
They
unsettled
are. Yeah,
place,
yeah.
right?
No, I was
They
trying to teach
really
her phone
like,
skills the other day. She's at her house and she said, "Goodbye," and she just hangs up. And I call her back and I'm like, "No, that's not how you say goodbye to your mother."
right,
Like, let's try this again.
a little bit
Right.
more, yeah, a little bit more
Yes.
skill.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you're saying that human relationships are some of our hardest.
Yeah, yeah. So there are some of the most difficult things that we do. And so this whole concept of self-worth, I think, um, it's so easy to discount ourselves and we're always in our own head. And so one of the things that I love to do with my clients is help them be cognizant of how their interaction is with other people and their own self-worth. And so for this, the reason I like it is because we have to watch like how we say certain things to certain people. And so it's even in just the tone. So like when your daughter just said goodbye, right? And she hangs up,
Yeah.
you're fine. You know that your daughter loves you and everything like that. But if she said that to maybe a boy or another girlfriend, they might take offense to it because their own
Mhm.
self-worth isn't enough, right? And so I think folks who are kind of struggling with their own self worth, if they're really thoughtful of the other person, it kind of flips the script and now it helps them see themselves as they
Oh,
see this
yeah.
other person. So that's one of the things that I think is really helpful. And I don't know how much work you do with negative self talk,
A
but
lot.
it goes hand in hand with this, right? So it's like, yeah, once if something comes out of your mouth that's rude or mean to another person, how much more of that has been going on in your head before you've ever said it?
Yes.
And so that is almost the fruit of what's going on in your mind. So if you're saying something mean or inconsiderate to another person, it's 10, 100 times as worse to yourself,
Probably.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's how I want my clients to watch their self-worth and negative self-talk is how often is it coming out of your mouth to another
Yeah,
person?
absolutely. And that's one of the cool things I think we do in hypnosis. I don't know if you do this, but I know in my practice, we work on identifying those parts sometimes. Like, who is it
Right.
that's talking
Whose
to you?
voice is
Whose voice is
that?
that? What do they look like? And
Yeah.
now, what do we what do we want to say to them, or where do we want to put them, or where do we want to send them, and how do you move into the gentle
Right.
self? I have had clients say, I don't have a gentle voice inside. It's like, okay, well,
Mm,
you know what? We can
that's
help
great.
you create one. Yeah, and internalize that and
Yeah.
be nice to
Yeah,
yourself.
just bringing that into the light, which means just identifying that it's a different voice, because you probably had this experience too, where you say, "Whose voice is that?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" Like, of course, it's my voice. And then you ponder further and you say, "But really, whose voice is it?" And they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's not my voice. It's my father's.
Yes.
It's my coach's. It's my mother. I can't believe that. And I didn't realize it wasn't even my voice. It's someone else's limiting belief
Yes.
that they've adopted." Right. So some of that self-awareness and reflection, like, so huge for our clients. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you run a training institute
Mhm.
for hypnotherapists, correct? For hypnotists?
Yeah, I've trained about 170 hypnotists. Some have been clients. A lot of them have been clients, actually, which is really cool because they come to me for a problem. They want to stop drinking. They want to eat healthier. They want to lose weight.
Mhm.
They want better business results. And the results are so fantastic for themselves. They're like, I want to help other people do this. This is like magic.
Yeah,
They feel like it's a real fun skill and just a real good use of their creative power and energies in the world. So
very cool. And is it in Washington where you are, or is it all
it's in
online?
Washington. It's both. Yeah. So it's a live training though. It's not record. It's not like
Okay,
you watch a video or something. It's a live training. You can attend remotely from your location, or you can attend in our center in Bellingham, Washington. My
very
preference
cool.
is for people to come and see us in person and have the immersive experience. However, that's not always possible. And so we just do the best that we can. And the virtual program is awesome. It's really, really good. Yeah, we had 100% virtual in April.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the nice thing about the virtual program is, because of the nature of the world right now, we're teaching students not only how to hypnotize in person, but also how to do it remotely. So they're all, you're getting basically business models that work for both scenarios, which is what you're going to want to have anyway.
Fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Where did they find your school?
You can find me at cascadehypnosistraining.com is the
Okay.
best place to find that. You can get a free copy of my book at canyoubeahypnotist.com. So
Uh-huh.
get a free copy there and read the book, check it out,
Cool.
see if it's something that you want to do. Talks about what it's like to be a hypnotist and the
Uh-huh.
skills that are required. And you have to be empathetic with a servant's heart and want to do good work in the world. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Great. And then tell
good.
people how to find your books.
But you can find my books on Amazon. You can find them in your favorite bookstores, Barnes and Noble, and local
Mhm.
retailers as well. So Can You Be a Hypnotist is my latest book. But for those of you who do want to lose weight, Reprogram Your Weight and Lighter are my other two copies.
Great. So
Yeah.
reprogram your weight and lighter.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate
Yeah.
you being here.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It was great talking with you today.
I hope you truly enjoyed today's episode. Remember that you can get free hypnosis downloads over at my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. I work all over the world doing hypnosis. So if you're interested in working with me, please schedule a free consultation over at my website, and we'll see what your goals are and if I can be of service to you in helping you reach them. Finally, if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast or tell a friend. That way, more and more people learn about the power of hypnosis. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. Peace.